Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Today we will be working on this. So this is a piece of untreated boulder. You can see ironstone here. It's a little bit conglomerate-like, but what we're going to try to do is free this little opal pipe just here. Now you can see there's another one on the side here. We're not going to go for him. There's another little diagonal running piece just over there and some other little bits and pieces. But here it's been rubbed back. This is from Nick Hoops, who recently sent this. And what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to slice along here, free this one, and we're going to see if we can get a stone out of it. Hopefully fully faced if I can get through that little bit of ironstone left, and we could end up with a pretty decent stone, though this backing material is quite unstable. So let's see if we can spin to win, slice, trim the edges, try to get a good face. Fingers crossed, let's see how it goes. Okay, so we're going to use the large electroplated cutting disc that I've got up on the website. With this one, we'll be able to go straight through, no worries, no need to go from one side to the other side. All we're going to do is just gentle swipes from one side of the stone. Now remember, the boulder mud can be a little bit grippy, so occasionally it might chew up your blade a little bit and just grip it a little bit more than you'd expect. So just keep dunking it in water. When you get right to the end, it's really tempting to snap it with your fingers, but just avoid temptation. It can go very wrong with this kind of material because of the host material being so loose. So just finish the cut with the blade from the one direction. You can go from the opposite direction as well if you need, and then just clean and dry the disc. You don't want it dirty, you don't want it rusting, so make sure to clean it. Now then we go with the 120 grit sintered diamond. I chose the 120 grit. I thought the 80 was a bit too much. If you are going to use something like the 80, be especially careful. I pull up a few millimeters short of the edge. With the 120, I'm happy to get within a millimeter, really close to it, but you got to be careful because this is loose material, and with the coarser grits, you will end up caking the bit very quickly. So you really do need the water nearby and just keep it clean because you will reduce your cutting efficiency. And with the 120, I've gone all the way down. You can see that it's a lot thinner than I'd like, but you can also see that there were a lot of voids that had to be gotten rid of. That just happens with this conglomerate material. Just as long as it doesn't break the stone, you're all good. Then I've got the 600 grit sintered diamond out, and here we're doing that last millimeter. You can see there's that little halo of ironstone around the opal. We want to trim it right back to the opal in most cases. It's going to take you a little bit of time, but being soft and careful about it is important. And also the direction of your spinning. You want the burr face that's grinding to spin into the opal. You don't want it spinning away. If a chip comes up, you don't want it to come up out of the face. You want it to be pushing into the face. Otherwise you can have a nightmare. And the back, we're just going to level out just by fast movements, rotating the stone as you go. You can get a nice flat back. On this stone, it's not going to be so important, as you'll see by the end. And you can see here, I'm just looking at these corners, and you just want to knock everything back. I tend to use the burr just like this along the edge of the stone. It helps you get a much cleaner shape, especially if you're going for cabbing or something. You want to be able to look at the face of the stone going up against the burr. Otherwise your shape can always be a little bit wonky. So it's good to really have a clear vision of where you're trying to go and what you're doing currently. Now every now and then when you're trimming up your shape, just get your fingers out of the way. Put it on the flat surface or just feel the backing against your finger and move all your fingers away and then go back to shaping. It's good to keep the bigger picture in mind when you're doing this. And if you're tunnel vision, like right here, all you can see is some of the edge of the stone. You can't see it in relation to the opposite edge, so just give it a little bit of a grind and always just every now and then place it on your finger, look at the entire face. It's super important. And now what we've done is we've made little windows. So this is a great time to stop and check out these inclusions that are in the face. And we're going to do that with the torch. So I always refer to this as the X-ray vision, and you can see everything. So even if you've got a tiny couple little specks on the face, you use your X-ray vision and all of a sudden you see that there are huge inclusions beneath the surface. A lot of the time you'll even see that they attach to the stone at the back, which means there is no way you can tunnel through and get rid of them. Your best bet is to slice it and cut off all of that section, or you have to really grind all the way down and be happy with that uneven kind of surface. So you could do this slice and we could end up with this other stone. I'm undecided, so I'm going to leave it for now. We're going to keep it as is, but it's always an option, and you've got to use the X-ray vision because it tells you everything you need to know. Let's have another look at the stone up close and discuss the plan ahead. Alright, so that went about exactly as I thought it would. So here's the other piece, the part we sliced off, I'm probably going to end up treating and stabilizing that because that's going to be a really nice looking piece of matrix with a bit of a couple chunks of opal in it. But if we go back to looking at this stone, it is fairly nice, and just trimming those edges around, we have been able to create what I call a little bit of a window. And once you've got a little bit of window like that, you can actually beam the light through and just directly trace where these plumes of ironstone are going. And unfortunately, as you saw, and I can flash up the image again, it does travel pretty deep way into the stone. So unfortunately, getting that out is going to be impossible. Sure, can always slice, but I'm uncertain if I do want to slice or whether I'd just keep a bit of ironstone in the face and have a longer pendant stone. It's not the end of the world, but material like this, that's always a chance. If we switch over to the back too, you can see here, every now and then you'll just get a random empty void. And even the voids that are filled with sand are so loose that it would need stabilizing to be able to actually set in the bezel setting or anything like that. Eventually the stone would just crumble. So I'd still be looking at essentially doubleting this, just conditioning all of this material, stabilizing it, and then just filling in the back a little bit with the perfect amount of depth that you want for your bezel. You can also see if you get a little bit closer and closer to the opal, eventually you'll just punch through, and right through here I can window and see all the way through to the other side. So it's not easy to try to get these tubes of opal to come out as full face stones, but I thought I wanted to show you guys how difficult it is and how much luck is involved. You need a void that's not too close to the opal. You need some sand that's not too close to the opal. You need it to transition to harder matrix. You also don't want to really punch through here, otherwise that's going to start looking a bit crystal in the face. If I shine a light behind it, you'd see that. And if this was cleaner here, you'd see it as well. You'd see my little finger wiggle behind it. In terms of the shaping and everything, I hopefully went through everything I wanted to there. There's just a few tips and tricks, especially when you're working with something that's a little bit unstable and a little bit, if a chip happens, it typically doesn't just chip, it'll just split. So you got to make sure your burr is rotating the right way according to the position you're holding your burr and the position you're holding your face. You just don't want it to spin the wrong way and chip or crack forwards towards the opal, because it'll be game over really quickly. A little bit unfortunate. If this ironstone could work out, it would have been a magnificent stone for sure. But I didn't want to reveal too much at the start. I kind of knew that this was going to happen. And I can show you how on a dry piece that I've still got. So this also all came from Nick Hoops. It was all in the same thing. I'm sure I would have shown you on the channel already. So here it's a big piece, very matrixy, a few little chunks here and there. And then this is the biggest chunk here. You can see there's a little bit of ironstone in there, and you might think, oh, I can probably work that out. A big piece of opal sitting in the middle of it. You know what, you could maybe trim either side and try to get a full stone out of this as well. In both cases, that is not really the case. And how do I determine that? Boom, Riley gun, gem light. If you get a stone like this, even though you can't have a window where you can shoot from front to back or anything like that, you can still turn it on. And even if you're looking straight at it, it doesn't come up well on the camera, but if you can just get a nice little spot where the light can penetrate in, you can actually glow the opal and it'll show you exactly how much ironstone is in the face. You don't need to carve all the way around it like a seam opal or anything like that, just right up against it, anywhere where there's a bit of opal. I mean, here you've got a bit of a cheat because one side is completely exposed. If I shine in there, in person, that is just X-ray vision. That's glowing and it's telling you exactly where all this ironstone is. That one's a bad one. This one over here is not as bad as it looks. Over here, pretty bad. And then there's some hidden stuff deep in there. If I switch over to the other one, this one is super easy because it's got two sides exposed. You can shoot all the way across and you can just see that this opal, this big chunk, is hard split right along here. And then there's a bit of stuff underneath coming from the back of the ironstone up through the opal in the middle of it too. You might be able to get some small stone there, but you might as well keep this all together and just make a pendant out of this. I would probably still cut this edge off here, and maybe I'll go for like a S shape, like a gentle S shape or lightning bolt kind of thing, just so that I can get rid of that big thing there with a little bit of fracturing over here, because that piece of opal is actually really thin and it's just fractured. But this one here is real nice. The power of light, it can tell you a lot. See how it just terminates right up against that wall of ironstone in there, whereas on the other side, we get all the way through right up until that wall of ironstone. And if those sides weren't exposed, you could still do the exact same thing by just holding it up against the face like this and seeing, yep, There's a big wall of ironstone there. It's not quite as easy, but you can still see it. Get your good spectacles on and you'll be able to see everything. If you do want to gamble on this kind of material with all the Boulder Opal pipes and everything, it's not a material that I'm hugely fond of. I much prefer hunting the veins and hoping for the best. But if you are going to gamble on this, invest in some sort of light that gives you a tiny little point. Or if you've got a torch or something, you're just going to have to maybe 3D print yourself a little nozzle or something to just beam the light shorter, because you just want to have a little poke around with your torch and just have a look at all the ironstone inside, because you'll find that it just plumes in weird and wonderful ways sometimes. Sometimes it's fully clean, but the torch will also tell you that as well, and you can adjust your plans accordingly. Now, in the case of all of these, just because I'm not going to do it in the video, I will just say that to finish off the face, all I would be doing, if it was more hard material and stable, I would skip stabilization and I'd just be going through the standard hard resin or Nova Points or sandpaper. Sandpaper, you can just go automatically through to 5000. You'll get a pretty good polish on this material as long as it's solid and not too sandy. But in the other cases, I'd be using if you get Nova Points up to 50k, you'll be perfectly fine. If you cap out at 3k like most people, then hit it with the aluminium oxide and felt afterwards, keeping it nice and wet so you don't bake it in there. Shown that on the channel a lot of times, but certainly not for beginners unless you really want to challenge yourself. This material can get real tricky. I think if you're a beginner, just stick to something more seam opal-ish. Boulder Opal with some decent veins in it is also a good option. But yeah, this material is for the days when you really want to challenge yourself, and you'll probably have a low rate of success if you're hunting full face stones. But if you can do what I'm talking about here and just shape this one up, I would probably drill a 3mm hole through the side here and have it as a string up pendant. It would look super cool. So hopefully this video helped. Good luck, have fun. Hopefully you find some good stones in the near future. See you guys.